What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about something that I noticed with Max. It was actually a recent video from Cuckoo on Games, and now I'm going to be, referencing this quite a bit. He did a whole almost 17-minute video. I'm going to link it in the description. Check it out if you haven't. There's a lot of spicy, good drops to it, right? Some good info there, and I want to give the guy a ton of credit because I think he did a really phenomenal job, and he was able to play a little bit of this game early. It seems like the gameplay itself might have overlapped with a lot of what we've seen before, but it's mainly what he said, because I feel like he went a little off the beaten path, right? The journalists, they're a little one-dimensional. Sometimes they do the same things as one another, but this person seemed to have gone through different journals or diaries or text messages, and what he said specifically on Max, that piqued my interest. I was watching the video, and, again, gameplay's similar to what we've seen before, but then he started to talk about Max's trauma and how she reacts to her parents, and I was like, oh my god, wait a second, we have to talk about this. So I figured I would make this video. So, I honestly kind of just said it there. That's really the big part that I want to talk about. So there was a part to his video where he said basically through his, deep dive of looking through Max's phone with the texts and all that kind of stuff, he honestly described her exactly how I want her described. And he described her actually, I think we're almost two of the same, very similarly to what I've talked about her in the past with, I don't want trauma to define her. I don't want this game to literally just be Life is Strange 1 again. And she just can't get through these things and she's bogged down and you can't even tell a new story. But what she went through in 1 is fascinating. It's interesting. It's complex. It's actually quite deep, and we're going to talk about that in this video. And that needs to still be there, right? It goes back to those fundamental points I've made for, at this point, 4 months, where this needs to feel like Max Caulfield. This can't be a new character. They need to go based off her DNA while evolving her character. She's gotten older, so, she is going to change naturally, but she is still the same person, right? So that's something, and we've talked about, okay, well, how does trauma define her? What is she going to go through? We've talked about a lot of that, and I will say a lot of that has seemingly been echoed in his video, where he talks about, if you think about it, and I've said this before too, no matter what, Max went through those events in Life is Strange 1, right? And specifically the Jefferson stuff. Even though certain things have gotten erased with time and time travel, she has gone through it, right? She has lived through those events. And that's something I've talked about, with you guys as well in past videos, where it's either choice that she makes, she still kind of experiences it all, right? I guess not technically everything, but she's gone through things that technically haven't happened, right? She can't go out there and go to a therapy session because it's there mentally and it's there on the inside, but she never technically was in the dark room, even though she was. And that's why I think the potential is so freaking enormous of what, again, doesn't need to be every single scene, doesn't need to define her, but how often do you have a character set up like that, where she has so much going on the inside and mentally and what she's gone through, but it's but also she technically never went through it. It's just so strange, and I love that. But going back to, this video, that's a lot of what he talked about. He talks about Max basically breaking out of her shell and being a little bit more confrontational, standing up for herself, but, at other times she's still a little bit more reserved and shy. When the police officer, right, is kind of talking to her, she can stand up. She can do things in the way that she talks that's a bit, a more evolved version of what she would do. In 1, she would probably be more shy and more reserved versus this one where she could be more outspoken. But, when you look through some of the text and, he mentioned some of the stuff with her parents, that when they mention anything about Mark Jefferson or Arcadia Bay or, Blackwell and stuff, she really goes into a shell and she doesn't want to talk about it. The parents ask if she's ever been touched inappropriately or talked to inappropriately. And the answer is no, right? And again, and he mentions that in this video, the answer is no. She never was, because she erased those moments from time, but she actually was, right? Because she did do the dark room and yet she didn't. So honestly, her whole character, persona, sounded really cool in his video, but that part specifically I found to be really not even refreshing. It's what I wanted to hear. It's what I've wanted to hear this whole time. And he came away with it like really impressed. He talks about Hannah Telle again with the comparison that she basically is Max and Max basically is her, something we've talked about as well. Like it feels really good to have her back, things like that. He mentioned that video. I was also very glad to see. I mean, honestly, and I've said this before, like, I think that's going to work out quite well, right? I mean, like, writing could torpedo it, but I feel like she literally, if you watch her in any interview or even when she does music and stuff, like, she really is Max Caulfield. You can't really take that away from her. You could give her bad writing, but I really feel like the motion capture, the performance, the kind of cadence of Max, I feel like that's going to be like a 10 out of 10 no matter what, because you just have her, right? Like, there's no messing that up except for writing. So it was good to hear all these things, honestly. And again, that trauma stuff, like, that's what I mean, I guess it's what I like to hear in a sense. Not that I want Max to like be tortured throughout the entire, all 5 episodes, but, she has been through a lot and it's complicated. I mean, that's really boiled down. She's been through so much and it's not easy to explain. Like, it's strange, it's complicated, it's whatever word you want to use. And that needs to show up in this game. And that's exactly what he talked about here. Now, it sounds like, at least part of this, you're going to have to go on more deep dives to figure this stuff out, right? You're going to have to read the text messages and go through her phone. But, I feel like that's just Life is Strange. You know what I mean? Life is Strange. I mean, really all of them, but specifically one in terms of how good it was. Like, everything has meaning and everything is kind of deep, and you have to take that time, add the extra half hour to your playthrough, and just click everything. And actually, let me kind of end at this point in terms of clicking everything. One final thing I forgot about up until now. He mentions how, like, that comedy, like the sarcasm, I think he said, like, you've never heard her so, like, dry and sarcastic in, like, a good way. You've never heard her so much. Like, she's so capable of, like, the witty one-liners, and anything that you click on in the world, she's going to have something either relatable to say or kind of sarcastic to say, right? Which, again, like, that's her. And that's, it might not be important to some people, right? But it's like, that's the cadence, and that's like the personality traits that is her. And it's easy to lose that. It's easy to not do that. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't have to be sarcastic. You could click things and it can kind of be like generic writing if she sees a plant or she see, whatever, or somebody ice skating, right? But it's like nailing those small moments of her inner thoughts, because she's like always thinking, kind of inward. And I guess it comes out loud in terms of like, volume. She's always doing that, right? So like, having that hit is, I think, really key to making sure that we're actually getting like the true Max back in this game. He also talked very briefly about Chloe in terms of there is no Chloe. Again, he played the version where Chloe's dead. So once again, as we talked about literally in the last video, they are purposely having anybody and everybody that plays this game, they're having them play the version where Chloe is dead. And I really would like to know, I want to see the other one. He did say that and this might be an interesting tidbit, he messed around with the timelines because, there's the theory that if you pick one in the opposite timeline, it's the other thing. So if I pick that Chloe is alive, the opposite timeline will be that she's dead, or vice versa. And we've been running with that theory for a while, not as like gospel, but we have like thought of that quite often, right? On pretty much everywhere. I've seen it on Reddit, I've seen it on YouTube. Turns out, at least what he saw in like, whatever it was, a 30-minute segment, that's actually not true. Like, most things are, characters like Moses is going to be a little bit different, right, based off choices that you make. But he said in his video that what he noticed is it's literally just Safi's dead or alive. Like, the other timeline, she's alive. In the main one, she's dead. And, like, that's the main difference. And then we know from Deck 9 that characters will change, right? If you do one major choice, say with Moses, in the alternate timeline, it'll be the opposite one. Whatever you didn't choose, it'll be that path. So he is going to kind of react to you differently and talk to you differently because of that. But it doesn't seem like Chloe has anything to do with that. But again, he played episode 2 and he played 30 minutes of it. I don't know if I want to make like, okay, well, this is how the whole freaking game is going to be when it's just based off that, right? It doesn't have to be like that. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, check out his video if you want to see, he talked about like the time powers and stuff like that. We've talked a little bit about it before. I don't really need to go over that unless you guys want me to in a separate video. But go check out his video. He did an awesome job. And make sure you're subscribed as always to this channel. And I hope to see you all on the next one.